everyone, it's me, Demetra Kaye of the Demetra Kaye Show here on YouTube and the proud contributor of the African Diaspora News channel. If you could do me a favor and please subscribe to all channels and like this video, I would greatly appreciate it. So, we have learned that there's a school in Purvis, Mississippi, a middle school to be exact. For the history assignment, they wanted to engage in a slave letter writing activity. Yes, you heard it right. A slave writing activity. Okay, they want to write a letter about slavery, and specifically, the letter asks them to pretend that they are a slave on a plantation in Mississippi and that they are writing their relatives back home to, just kind of fill them in of their day-to-day activities of what they would do as a slave on that plantation, right? And so, let me read to you actually what the principal, Frank Bunnell, said. Basically he was like, hey, I'm disappointed and appalled that this happened under my watch. However, he says a person could read just the assignment and draw a very unrealistic view of the true tragedies that occurred. That was not intended. However, intent does not excuse anything. There is no reason to downplay a practice that, even after abolished, spurs unjust laws, unfair economic practices, inhumane treatment, and suppression of a people. Then it goes on to say, the exercise cheerfully suggests topics students might cover in their letter. You may discuss the journey to America as as well as the day-to-day tasks you perform. Okay, let's stop it right there. Just a second. All right. So he's got some things right, in regards to it being unjust, unfair, and robbing black people of the economics and all of that. But one thing that kind of just threw me off is when he says, you may discuss the journey to America. A journey? He made that sound like, we was willingly on that slave ship and, just like, hey, let's go take a journey to America. Let's see what there is to do out there. Like it was a cruise, ship or something like that. And then he says the day-to-day tasks that you may perform. Doesn't that sound like a job spec or something, like at a corporate job somewhere? That doesn't sound anything like a slave plantation where slaves pick cotton and tobacco, among other things. He tried to make it seem like it was just zhuzhy job, every day, I make sure that the paperwork is in place and it's filed and I'm getting this, that, and the other ready for this big high profile meeting. It's like, dude, you don't need to try to gloss up the plantation, okay? There was nothing goal-oriented or task-oriented about being a slave on a plantation. It was back-breaking work. It was horrible, right? It was brutal. But all right, let's move on, okay? And so, of course, a lot of activists there in Mississippi got wind of, the slave letter writing activity for this 8th grade class, and they took exception to it, and rightfully so. And so one of the social media managers of the Black Lives Matter chapter there in Purvis, Mississippi, says, I don't know how a logical person teaches this. And then he goes on to say, it was sent by the parent of a student. Like someone who went to the school to teach children could think this exercise was helpful in any way. It's not helpful. It's harmful. And he's right. It is harmful. But, that just goes to show you in the mind of white people. Now, I think we should also take into account that Mississippi is one of the most racist states in America. If not, it probably is the most racist state in America. It is said that at that particular school, there is 80% white students and 12% black students, although in the Mississippi school district, it is about 50% black students, okay? Now, also, in the state of Mississippi, it makes up about 40%. So 40% of Mississippi is black. And it is said that Mississippi holds the most in population in regards to black people, right? But it's still very racist. And in this particular county, the county of Lamar County, It is said that is Klan country. That is where, the Klan it has deep roots, and even still to this day, they said the Grand Wizard, he was owning cracking in a neighboring city. And so it's not a secret that Mississippi is just like, wow, right? But even in 2021, out of all the things that we've seen go on so far, it's still not a surprise that a school will be like, oh my God, we didn't know. We thought, they were engaging in some sort of a historical exercise to have them write about them being a slave and what life would be like, right? Okay. And so also one of the young Democrats not young Democrats, young Democrats, he said the following. It doesn't matter what the intention was. The impact is the only thing that matters. If I were a parent in the classroom, I would be pissed. There are proper ways to educate students about the history of this nation. This was not one of them. And he's absolutely right. Okay. Now, also, when you say, write home to your African relatives about your, basically your work life, they're making it seem like, they were just standing around at the water cooler, they being the slaves, and, they're going to write and say, hey, you know what, it's great here. The work culture is awesome. We have a wonderful boss. We get all this vacation time and all these bonuses. Like, what was they supposed to say? Because if that had been my child in that class and they had to write a letter, they would have called me. They'd have called me. Because my daughter would have said something like, well, let me tell you about these white people here in America, these slave masters, okay? They are horrible, evil people that, do the most heinous things to Black people here in America, including murder, kidnapping, rape, and everything else in between. And there is nothing glamorous about working here on a plantation in Mississippi, okay? My child would have gave them a whole new understanding of a slave letter, all right? But this is like these people are so out of touch. And again, the other part that's crazy to me is like these teachers, and it was a white teacher. Maybe I'm wrong because we've seen some weird things. I would just hope that wasn't a Black teacher. I'm just going to assume that it was a white teacher because, they always like to keep the teachers, their identity a secret, right? But it's so amazing how out of touch they are and how they really think that Black people wouldn't have a problem with it. You know what? It probably was, Miss Karen, who was a teacher, was probably sitting at home with her husband the night before. It's like, hey, Brad, why don't we, what I think I'm going to do for school, for history, Black history? I think I'm going to have the students write a slave letter to their ancestors back home in Africa and see what they would say. Don't you think that'd be great? I mean, it's like, how do you come up with such ignorance, But this is the other part I want to say. This is not going to be the first, and it won't be the last time that we hear of such silliness from white people in the education system, okay? It's not going to be the first, not going to be the last. And the other thing is this, why don't we as Black people, seriously entertain building our own schools and educating our own children so that they don't have to sit up, and watch a PowerPoint from Miss Karen talking about, I want you all to write, a slave letter home or to your family in Africa. And then one of the bullet points said this: you may also want to tell about the family you live with / work with for and how you pass your time when you aren't working. When I pass my time when I'm not working again. You notice how they tried to just water it on down, like I just punched into a 9-to-5 in my, business suit and my briefcase, and I was just happy to be there. Like, really? But tell about the people I work with. Like, I just got some coworkers, right? Like, we are unionized coworkers. This again, this won't be the first and it won't be the last. But the question we as Black people need to answer is, What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? All right, you guys, and so for more insightful commentary, please subscribe to this channel and my channel, The Demetra Kaye Show, here on YouTube. Peace.